Welcome back. We have Terry Roth joining us on the show. He has penned this book, which we're going to see up close on the screen here, The Peasant's Gold. It's the story of Peter Wing, Kamloops' mayor, first Chinese mayor, but not only in Kamloops, but the first Chinese mayor in North America. A lot of people familiar with the history of Kamloops know about Peter Wing, and you know a little bit more than most. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about this book. What was your inspiration behind writing it?
At the time, I was taking an extension course at the university in feature writing. So I was looking for someone to write about. This goes way back, 20 years ago. Peter was still living at the time. There were dozens of articles about him, so I thought, this man deserves to have a book. There's more here than just an article.
Yes. He became mayor in 1966, is that right?
Yes.
And here is a picture of him. I believe that picture on the right is from the day that he became mayor. A lot of history here, a lot of stories about the oppression of the Chinese, the fact that you as an immigrant yourself, but only from the US, you sort of felt like you might have a small feeling of understanding his situation in being an immigrant, but his story, of course, quite remarkable.
Extremely remarkable. You have to understand, he grew up through the dirty 30s, the Great Depression, of course, the Chinese Exclusion Act, which most of us simply do not understand, that almost no Chinese were allowed in Canada for over 20 years. And here are these families that were not citizens, they were non-persons, they had no real rights, and yet they established themselves in Kamloops as servants of the community. And when the time was right, here was a son who had been raised to serve, and of course served very well.
And you made mention in your book about the fact that how is it that he became the first Chinese mayor anywhere in North America right here in Kamloops? Like, why not a bigger city like Vancouver or San Francisco, where the Chinese communities were much more well entrenched? Why do you think it happened here?
Well, part of it had to do with the community itself. A fellow by the name of Roth asked Peter to come onto the Board of Trade. Peter was only 20 years old at the time, but he saw the need for the Chinese to have a voice in the local city, which they couldn't have in any other way. So that was part of it. And part of it was that Peter himself said, we never felt that we were any different. We did business the same way everybody else did business. Most of our friends were Caucasian. So he knew these people and they knew him. There had been a great deal of trust built up over many, many years. And
when you became a citizen of Canada, I believe it was 1996, he came to your ceremony. He officiated it?
He officiated our ceremony.
That's so neat.
And I mentioned it in the book, but we waited for Mr. and Mrs. Wing after the ceremony. And when they came out, he's carrying the dishes, following his wife, that they had used their own dishes for the ceremony and helped clean the hall.
Love it. Love that story.
And I mean, these are elderly people who have a bit of fame, mini fame anyway, and I was amazed at just the attitude.
What do you think made Peter Wing such an exceptional man?
Peter said himself that he was never a wannabe, that people showed him things that needed to be done and encouraged him to do them. And he had that willingness to really fulfill what other people saw needed to be.
And I understand he was a very well-respected man in this community. He and his wife were married for 75 years before his death in 2006, hers in 2007, 10 weeks later, I believe. Yeah, it's just a remarkable story. Any other points of interest in this book that you want people to know about?
Well, the setting of the Chinese and the incredible bias that they were against for all those years is very important. But also to understand that as a community, we at one time were not that friendly to immigrants. And there's a great lesson for us to realize that we need to have a right attitude, and that those that we think might be different have so much to offer.
Absolutely, and especially now. That's more poignant now than it ever has been in my mind. Terry, we're out of time. I want to say thank you for being here today and sharing us. Sharing this with us. That's great. If people want to pick up a copy of this, where can they go?
I would suggest go to the Kamloops Museum. They carry it. You can order it through Chapters Bookstore. It's in their listings. Or go to Amazon.ca or .com. It's available online and in Kindle and Kobo versions for e-readers. Okay, fantastic. Job well done. Thank you. Great to have somebody writing about such an important piece of our history here in Kamloops. So definitely you can also email Terry if you would like to. That's on the screen.